Okay, in this video, we're going to talk about how to format a paper based on APA citation style. One thing that you want to do when you get here, this is a Word document. Your school has provided you with a free version of Microsoft Word. So if you don't know how to find that, you can send me a message on Canvas, and I'll be happy to explain to you how to get that. But it's free to you as long as you're a student. So you can download it into your computer and stop using Google Docs. Google Docs is not a good way to write a paper. It is very handy, it's very quick, but it's not a good way because the formatting style of Google Doc is not the same. So when you download a Google Doc as a Microsoft Word document, it all messes up all the format. So download the Word document, it's free to you. You can have all the Word, Excel, PowerPoint, all that stuff for free, as long as you're a student, you have access to your student ID number. I'm sorry, student email. If you don't know how to get that, let me know as soon as possible and I can help you do that. Now, if you're using a tablet to write a paper, I think you can download the app and still log in. So you can always do that. But if you're doing it on your phone, you shouldn't be doing anything on your phone, especially writing a paper. And if you're doing it, go into the technology section on our homepage. And I have told you how to get a tablet or a laptop from the school. So I'm going to explain this to you. And I'm going to use Word document. The first thing that you want to do is you want to set the margins. So you want to click on layout up here, and then you're going to click on margins, and you're going to select 1111. The margin requirements for APA and this class are 1111. So 1 inch margin in every corner. A lot of people think that increasing a margin is going to lead them to write less because it's less pages. When you send me your paper, I download the paper, I reset the requirement, I reset the paper to my requirement, which is 1 inch and 12-point font, Times New Roman, Romans, and then I grade it. And so you want to make sure that you meet the requirement of the instructor for the paper. We've been great. I can look at a paper and say, oh, the margin doesn't look right. And I'm like 99% of the time, I'm right. The margin is larger than, or short or less. You don't want to also do less. I have received papers that the margin is less. I probably won't penalize you for having it less, but it's also a requirement. So, no, to be honest with you, I'm gonna deduct your grade if your margin is not 1, because in the writing requirements, I tell you that you should have a 1 inch margin. So 1 inch margin, you set it by going to margin 1 inch, and then the next thing that you want to do, go to home, and you want to change the font to Times New Roman, and then size 12. That's the font that you should be writing with. You don't want to write with any funky fonts. It makes it difficult to read. So make sure that you set the Times New Roman and size 12 font. The next thing you want to do, the entire paper should be double spaced. Rarely ever an instructor will ask you to write a single space because it's difficult for us to read single space. And when you actually print it, when you used to print papers, we wanted to be able to write between the lines, so we made double space pages. So now double space has become the standard. So you click on this line and paragraph spacing, and you set it to 2. So now your paper is 1 inch margin, Times New Roman size 12, and double space. So what that means, so if let's see if it's true. Yep, double space, Times New Roman, so it's correct. So Now, I deleted it and it reverted back. I don't know why. I don't like that, but you want to make sure that it doesn't revert back. There we go. Next thing that you want to do, you want to number the page. So you go to insert, you go to page number, you go to top of the page, and you select plain number 3, and it puts it on that side of the page. Now, if you are familiar with the fonts, you see that something happened here. The font now is Calibri. So you want to change that to Times New Roman. Let me make sure it did change it. Times New Roman, and then you want to keep it. If you press Control A, it would select everything. I don't know, Mac users, what you should be, it's probably Function A. It selects everything that in that section. So now I have a Times New Roman size 11. That's the only thing that stays size 11 is the page number, because you want that a little bit smaller. And then you go to Design, and then you click Close Header. Now the header has number 1 in it. And so if you go to the next page, let me see, if I insert a page break, you see the paper changed the page number to 2 automatically. So that's an easy way of numbering your paper. Page 1 of each paper in APA format should be the cover page. And the cover page, the way you write the cover page is described. Let me show you here. So it tells you how to write a cover page. There are 2 ways of writing cover page, the professional paper and the student paper. And you want to use the student paper. So the title is here. Then if you have a subtitle, you put it here. I don't recommend subtitles unless it is necessary. Just put a title. Then your name, then your institutional affiliation, what department you're in, and what university you're in, or college you're in. So this person is Department of English, is in Department of English. That's basically your major. What's your major and what university you're in. So Department of English, Purdue University. The name of the course goes underneath it. So English 999, course name. And then my name goes here. You can say Professor Brugeni or Tom Brugeni. And then the date goes down there. It's a date that you write the paper. If you write it on multiple dates, use the last date or the first date. It doesn't really matter. It's just sort of a date marker of the paper, but they all need to be there. So let's go back and make our page. So first thing you do, I'm going to turn the markers on my paper. So this will tell me everything that I do in the paper. So I'm going to go up here and click on this sign. So what ends up happening is that it puts these markers, and these markers are things that don't show usually in the paper. For example, if I press the enter button, it puts a paragraph marker. If I press the tab button, it puts one of these there. You won't be able to see these in the paper, and if I click on this, they all disappear. And if you print that paper, it doesn't show anything, it just looks like this. But if you click on this, you can see what happens in the paper. So I pressed the enter twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. So you come down to the 5th line of the paper. Then you center adjust it. So by clicking on this, so you center the paper, and then you put the name, cats and dogs, cats and dogs. And I'm gonna, the subtitle, you don't need to have a subtitle. I don't recommend the subtitle, but let's say a comparative, analysis of pet ownership. Okay. And the way you write this, it has to be, they call it, you capitalize each important word. So cat is an important word, and is a connective word, so you don't capitalize that. Dog is an important word. Then A is at the beginning of the sentence again, because it's right after the semicolon. And then comparative is an important word. Analysis is important. Of is a connective word. Pet is important. And ownership is important. So cats and dogs, a comparative analysis of pet ownership. So let me go back to my Purdue Owl. Okay, the next thing on there, oh, it also tells me I have to bold this. So now it's bolded. Then I press the enter 3 times and I put my name, but I want to make sure that it's not bolded, so I got to turn off bold. So Tom Burgeni, that's my name. You see, instead of space, you see these dots here. And that dot is basically space because you turned on this thing. So I'm turning it on so you see the spaces and the enters and the tabs that I'm pressing. Tom Burgeni. And the next thing it wants from me, let me go to the website. It says my institutional affiliation. So my institutional affiliation is communication department. And then it says put a comma, and then your college. Let's say, let me make up a college, University of so and so. And wherever you're going to school and whatever your department is, you put the institutional affiliation over here, and then the university or college over here. Okay, and then it asks me, so this is a COM class. Let's say this is a COM 25 class, argumentation. And then my professor, let me make sure I'm doing the right thing. My professor is Professor Jose last name Harris. Okay. And then finally the date, let's say 3/1/2021. So this tells me, this shows that this is done. You don't want to put the spaces right after these, so you don't want it to look like that. You want to delete the spaces. You just want to have a very clean, very nice sort of cover page. And this is a very nice cover page. And so I don't want to have anything underneath. I want to go to the next page. You need to do an insert page break. A page break means that from where I am, I don't want anything else in that page. I want to go to the next page. And what that does, if I press this, it says a page break, which if I turn off the signs, it doesn't show anything. So it looks like that. And the page break just puts me at the top of the next page. So that's what you want to do instead of pressing enter all the way, because if you press enter and then you change something, the numbers don't add up. The lines don't add up, and this line, the first line of your page and page 2 can go into page 1, and you don't want that. So now you have a page break. So it doesn't matter what I add or delete here, it's not going to impact this. So anything I write here, let's say I write this. If I write something here, oops. So let's do it again. Harris, insert, page break. So I'm gonna write this, all right. If I go back up here and press enter, anything that I put down is not gonna affect that line. But if the page break is not there and I do that with enters, let's say I do that with enters, and I put something here. If I add another line, it's gonna push the whole thing down one sentence, one line. So you see, you don't want that. That's why we use a page break. So you need a page break. Oops. So at the end of that, I'm gonna press page break. Oops, home. I'm gonna turn this on. Okay, so you wanna make sure that this is the center justified, so it's at the center. And you wanna copy and paste this whole thing, your title, here again. So that's what it looks like. And then you wanna go to the beginning of the sentence, the beginning of the line, and you're gonna do a line indent. You can do a line indent. Well, you don't want to use a tab. The reason is you don't want to use a tab. It will do it for you, but a tab is not a line indent. What you want to do is up here. Look at the ruler. If you don't see the ruler, you could go into view and you could activate or deactivate the ruler. So you want to activate the ruler, then you want to go up here on this triangle, and you want to grab the triangle and go to the 1/2 inch mark. So every paragraph starts with a 1/2 inch indent. So now let me write something. The second line doesn't have the indent. Now I'm also noticing something wrong here. What ended up happening is that my double space did not take for the second page. So I wanna, because the whole paper is gonna be double spaced, I'm gonna press Control All, or if you're using Mac, I think it's Command A or Control A in PC. Right click on this, or not, or I can just click on that up here, and I'm gonna click on 2 as the space. So that's a double space marking for the paper. It's here we go. That's what it looks like. So it was also wrong for the first page. So this is what double space look like. So that's a very beautiful cover page. And then you've started your paper. You've written, and let's say, and it's a short paragraph here, but let's say I press enter, it puts you at the next paragraph with an indent already there. And you can start writing there. So let's say this is the end of your paper. When you're writing, you have to have a reference page. So in order to create the reference page, you have to go to the end of the paper. And what I usually do, once I come across my first citation, I also create my reference page. So let's say I was writing, and this is the place where I come across the first citation. If I press, I'm gonna go to a new page, so I'm gonna press on page break. So it puts me right here. But I have to be at the center of that page. So if I click on the center, it puts me here. Now the problem is this is not the center because it's justified 1 inch, 1/2 inch, because it thinks I'm gonna write a new paragraph. So I have to grab this thing, this triangle up here, and pull it back. And now I'm in the middle. So I call this page references, because references, here we go. References. You call it reference if it's only one reference, and you call it references if it's more than one, which it should be almost always more than one. Then you press enter, and then what it does, it puts you on the new line. You want to come back here to the beginning of this line, and let's say that I am going to find a citation. So let me go to this. Let's talk about how to cite, but I'm gonna show you something. Reference list, author. Okay. I'm gonna cite. This is the source that I'm using. It's Soto CJ, and here's a problem with this because the font changed again. So you got to be very cognizant of these font changes. The reason font changed because the font where I got it from was that. So I'm gonna change the font and merge format. Here we go. So when you put your references in the reference page, you use what we refer to as a hanging indent. So you put your cursor at the beginning of the paragraph, and then you grab the bottom triangle and put it at a 1/2 inch mark. And that gives it a hanging indent, which means the first line is not indented, but all the rest of them are indented. How do I know this? Is because when you go to Purdue OWL, the website, it tells you need to have a hanging indent, okay? So you want to make sure that you have a hanging indent, and I put my first citation here, and we'll talk about how to cite sources and where to get them from. But now I have a cover page, I have written, a short paragraph, and then this is the first place that I'm citing this source, and I have it here. Every time you get to a new source, you place the citation in the text and also in the reference page. You shouldn't be waiting to do it at the end because that can cause a lot of problems. You could forget, and that's how you get a 0 on the assignment because you get plagiarism charges, and that's a 0 on the assignment. So you want to make sure that as you go, you also cite your sources. And remember, I told you that you should be writing in a outline format. So you can just copy and paste what we had over in this document and then change the format later. So I'm gonna say merge the formats. Okay, now the format is merged, and then you have the introduction, and you can write here whatever you need to write, and you could do the citation at the bottom. And then when you're done with everything, you can put it in a paragraph format. You basically just delete these headers and these basically this section names, and you make it just a paragraph format. Once that's done, then your paper is done because you were doing the references as you were going. The other information you need to know is what are the different ways to cite sources. It's really important, and you don't need to ask any of your instructors, do I need in-text citation? The answer is always yes. You need to cite your sources both in the reference page and in the text. And the way you do that, in the reference page, you have the whole thing, and in the body of the paper, anytime you get any information from another source, and we're going to talk about that in a second, you cite your source. Let's say I say that cats. I'm gonna write it. Oops. I'm gonna write it here. Cats on average eat less than dogs. The average eat less food than dogs. Okay. Now, it's important for me to cite this source. Let's say I got this information from this source. Obviously, I didn't. This is just a placeholder. But the way I cite this is, first I need to determine if this is a direct quote or this is a paraphrase. When you cite, there are two ways to cite. You either have a direct quote or you have a paraphrase. A direct quote is when you get the information directly from the source that is placed in the source that you use the information from. That means you verbatim get the information from there. Paraphrasing is when you change the wording, but the information comes from there. Let's say that, let me find a source that talks about the amount of food that each animal eats. Let me find it. How much cats eat versus dogs. I can't find anything comparing the amount of food that dog. Well, let's find something else. Cost of food for cats versus dogs. Okay, so I found a website that talks about annual cost of pet ownership, and I'm gonna show you. Now, I dissuade you from finding information online, but you know, we're talking about how you should be finding information. But this is a website that talks about money under 30, and it talks about the annual cost of pet ownership. Can you afford a furry pet? Furry friend. It says the first year cost of dogs or cat ownership exceeds $1,000 according to ASPCA, and what pets expenses to expect before. Okay, so let's go down and see what it's talking about. One-time expenses, annual expenses. All right, here we go. Food. Dogs eat $250 to $750 versus cats eat $100 to $200. So let me see if there is a written information, pet food delivery, budgeting options, reader white light, suggest buying litter. Okay, so it talks about litter, adoption fees, food costs. And it will come to no surprise, the size of your dog definitely affects how much the food he or she eats. Larger dogs and this, smaller dogs, smaller quantities, and this and that. Here's a rough breakdown. You can imagine breeding. Okay, so I guess you can. This is the direct quote out of this website that talks about the food expenses for the dog. So I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna stop share it with you, and I'm gonna go back to the document, and I'm gonna say cost on average cats on average eat less food than dogs. And you can see that the original information was this, right? And I paraphrased that information to this. So that's paraphrasing. But if I say the actual numbers, like if I say even if I say something like dogs, food expenses of dog is between $250 and $750, whereas cat food costs between $100 and $200 per year. That's, you might think that that's, I guess that's not a direct quote, but that's paraphrasing because there wasn't much there. So I actually changed the way it was said to these. I would still direct quote. I don't think you need that direct because it's so little information. So if you look at the initial information, it says this. It's so little information was taken. The wording was not in the original source. The wording that we're using, either this or that, a significant amount of it came from from you or from me. So in this case, you need to paraphrase this. It's a paraphrasing. It's not a direct quote. And for paraphrasing, let's say we got that information from this source. What you do, you can do it two different ways. One is you just say what you need to say, and you put it Soto and Johnson 2017. Or you can say, according to Soto and Johnson and John 2017, food expenses of dog for dogs is between $250 and $750, whereas cat food costs between $100 and $200 per year. So let me delete this. So I took this information. Okay, let me go right here for you. I took this info. Let me make sure I'm sharing the right thing. I took this information from the source, I paraphrased it and put it in my own wording. And I said this or this. One way of paraphrasing is that, and at the end you say what you want to say, and at the end you put in this format, or you say according to so and so, and then you put the year and you say what they said. Those are the two ways to paraphrase. Now I want to show you a direct quote. So I want to go. Let's say that we're going to go over here. I'm going to take something else. From the same website, and I'm going to put it here for you. This sentence. So this is the original sentence verbatim out of that website. If I use this, I have to quote this. And how do I know this? I know this from Al Purdue. I have to code it this way, and I have to then use this citation at the end, but also include the page number, or if it's coming from a website, paragraph number. So the paragraph number is paragraph 7. So when you direct quote, you tell me the page number and or the paragraph number and the paragraph number, and then you use the quotation mark, direct quotation marks. And you can also say, according to Soto and John, 2017, and then you use the actual quotation, copy. And then at the end, you put para 7 and put the dot after the parentheses is over. So that's how you direct quote something. The period doesn't go inside the quote, it goes at the end of the parentheses. Let me make sure I don't have external. Okay, so these are the two ways that you direct quote. This way and this way. And then these are the two ways that you paraphrase. Now I can tell you, there shouldn't be a situation, you should paraphrase everything except definitions. The only thing that should not be paraphrased are definitions. So if you're defining something to me, that's the time you don't paraphrase and you use direct quotes. For example, this sentence should never be it will come as no surprise that size of your dog definitely affects how much food he or she eats. Larger dogs need larger quantities of food, smaller dogs need smaller quantities of food. This should never be direct quoted. This should always be paraphrased because it's not a definition. So how would I paraphrase that? I can paraphrase it this way. The size of the dog. So you have to change the entirety of the sentence. Don't use every 3 word, change every 3 word. That doesn't work. That flags you as plagiarism, and then you're gonna get charged. You have to, the best way to do it is to read the sentence and then close the window, or minimize the window that you read it on, and then wait a couple of minutes and then try to rephrase it. So you're not looking at it and you're trying to rephrase it. But so I read something about how the size of the dog or the animal is going to change the amount of food they eat. So the size of the dog is what determines the amount of food they eat. The larger the dog, well, no, I can't say that because that is too close to what the original source said. Larger dogs eat more food than smaller dogs. And so that needs to be according to Soto and John in 2017. The size of the dog is what determines the amount of food they eat. Larger dogs eat more than smaller dogs. And that is a paraphrase format. You can also do it this way. You can copy this. Copy. You cite it after the first sentence. You say, right here. That can also be the way that you cite that source as a paraphrase. So now you have examples of how paraphrasing works, examples of how direct quote works, and you know that anything that is in the paper, cited in the, any source that is cited inside the paper has to be in the reference page, and any source that is in the reference page should be cited inside the paper. So it's really important. If you have a source that you have in the references, but it's not in the body of the paper, has not been cited in the body of the paper, that's plagiarism. So you want to make sure that as you go, you cite your sources in the page, and also you have the reference page. And there, you need to figure out how the syntax of these references are. I highly recommend that you use the OWL Purdue website to figure out how to cite your sources. There are very minute syntaxes that are used here, like spaces or no space. Like, for example, there's no space here, or there's a space right here. There's a space after this period. I'm sorry, there's a comma after this period and a space after that. These are all explained in OWL Purdue, and you need to be using that to citing your sources in the reference page. And so also you need to be using OWL Purdue to cite your sources in the body of the paper. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me and I'll be happy to explain that to you. Again, using work that you have written in the past and submitting it again, or you have used in high school or in a different class, it counts as plagiarism. So don't do it. Make sure that you produce original work. Yep, I think we're good. If you have any questions, please reach out to me.